A few weeks ago, Union Home Minister Amit Shah made headlines by proclaiming that Port Blair in Andaman and Nicobar would be renamed Sri Vijaya Puram. According to the government, this was a move to decolonize. Among other reasons, the name is meant to recall the region's supposed history as the naval base of the Tamil-speaking Chola Empire of South India. Perhaps not coincidentally, Sri Vijaya was also the name of an ancient Southeast Asian polity, a region into which the Greater Nicobar project will undoubtedly project Indian power. Srivijaya too was once shaped by Chola power. This is its story. For nearly half a millennium, from the 7th to the 12th century CE, the east coast of Sumatra was home to the most unique polity in the Indian Ocean world, Sri Vijaya or Fortune's Victory. Sri Vijaya was a kaleidoscopic network of semi-autonomous lords, chiefs and ports centered on the vast commercial center of the same name, present-day Palembang. Most of these ports were settlements of wood and stilts near river mouths, offering shelter from the monsoon storms. Srivijaya rose to supremacy through its intensive contact with the Sanskrit speaking world, as William Dalrymple writes in his magisterial new work, The Golden Road How Ancient India Transformed the World. The rulers of Palembang were interested in tantric Buddhist rituals and South Asian political concepts, which were brought by monks from across the Indian Ocean, but primarily from present day Bengal and Tamil Nadu. These rituals, coupled with fine imported textiles and jewelry, brought Palembang's kings power and prestige and elevated them over the chiefs of inland Sumatra. The kings quickly weaponized both. In the 7th century CE, the Palembang kings forced inland Sumatran chiefs to participate in a ceremony. Water was poured over a sculpture of a multi-headed naga, and the chiefs then had to sip it with a vow of loyalty to the king. If they broke the oath, they believed the naga's power would rot their insides. With control over Sumatra secure in this way, Palembang began to look further afield to the Malay Peninsula. Maritime nomads moved through the peninsula's coastal swamps. Archaeologists John Mixick and Gyeokyan Ho, in their book Ancient Southeast Asia, write that these nomads relied on fishing and occasionally preyed on passing ships. Palembang's kings coerced them instead to patrol the waters of the Strait of Malacca in return for trade revenues, which would be collected by local ports allied together with them in a great confederacy, Sri Vijaya. It was a compelling deal, aided by the fact that Sri Vijaya control in Malaya was always loose. Now, commerce proved far more profitable to local rulers than piracy. Soon, there was a major shift in Indian Ocean networks. Up to the 9th century or so, most trade from South India was directed towards Thailand's Isthmus of Kra and went overland to the Gulf of Thailand before reaching present-day Cambodia and Vietnam. But once Srivijaya pacified the Malacca Strait, shipping traffic began to concentrate there, as it still does now over 1,000 years later. Now, as was frequently the case with these loosely knit medieval polities, Srivijaya's loose structure was its undoing. It included within it many former rivals, all of which had their own ports and trade networks. They were happy to work with Palembang as long as it profited them, but once they grew rich, they soon tried to flex their own power and assume leadership of the entire Srivijaya Confederacy. For example, the kings of Kedah in present-day Malaysia grew powerful indeed by the late 10th century and muscled in on the trade with South India and China. At the time, South India was dominated by the expansionist Chola dynasty. Kedah seems to have been the Chola's main trading partner in Southeast Asia, as archaeologist Suresh Kumar Muthukumaran writes in the edited volume Sojourners to Settlers, Tamils in Southeast Asia and Singapore. Medieval Tamil writers often use Kedah's Tamil name, Kadaram, interchangeably with Southeast Asia as a whole. But Tamil merchants were unhappy with Kedah, who wanted to control Srivijaya's goods for itself, especially camphor, which was in high demand in newly built Chola temples. Now, by 1025 CE, the Cholas had executed an unprecedented long-range strike into Bengal to secure loot and Ganga water to inaugurate their new capital. Astonishingly, historian Y. Subarayulu writes in Nagapattinam to Suvarnadvipa, while Chola inscriptions frequently mention army regiments, they almost never mention a navy. This would suggest that long-range Chola strikes, like their attack on Bengal, were enabled by Tamil merchant shipping. And Tamil merchants, as we just saw, had plenty of grudges against Kedah. The Chola expedition to Southeast Asia was above all an attack on Kedah, which was attempting to become the foremost power in the Sri Vijaya Confederacy. From 1026 CE onwards, the Chola Emperor Rajendra I adopted the title of Kadaram Konda, Kedah Caesar, and renamed various Tamil towns Kedah Caesar City. In a long royal eulogy he commissioned, Rajendra detailed the sacking of Kedah, the capture of its ruler, and the tearing down of one of its bejeweled gates. This led to a political shockwave that transformed Srivijaya. Over the next few decades, Palembang completely lost any claim to leadership, and Malayu, which is present-day Jambi, emerged supreme. Rajendra Chola's eulogy also claims that his forces attacked various other cities in Southeast Asia but doesn't detail any of these attacks. One of the places that he mentions is the great Nakavaram, whose flower gardens resemble the girdle of the nymph of the southern sea. Some historians have suggested this is Nicobar. Could this be the Chola naval base that Port Blair would be named after? Aside from the eulogy, though, there's no archaeological basis for a Chola naval base in Port Blair, Andaman, Nicobar, or anywhere in Southeast Asia. Perhaps this will change with new evidence, but for now, excavations reveal that there was a shift in Kedah settlement area around the time of the Chola invasion. Instead, excavations conducted by Singapore-based archaeologist E. Edwards McKinnon have shown that Tamil merchants were the ones who set up permanent bases in Sumatra, perhaps taking advantage of the turmoil caused by the Chola attack on Kedah and the resultant chaos in Sri Vijaya. To return to the renaming of Port Blair, this new name Sri Vijaya Puram is certainly political but not historical or strictly decolonial. In fact, it appropriates history for nationalist sentiment, which is commonplace in Indian politics today. Even if archaeology someday finds that Nakavaram or Nicobar was a permanent Tamil base, medieval Tamil merchants were not decolonial powers. As historian Risha Lee wrote in her path-breaking PhD thesis, Constructing Community Tamil Merchant Temples in India and China, Tamil merchants were active behind the frontier of Chola expansion in South Karnataka, northern Sri Lanka, and northern Sumatra, and were always heavily armed. Inscriptions reveal that Barus, which was the main Tamil merchant settlement in Sumatra, had a general or a Nagara Senapati and an elephant corps. And as we've seen, such settlements were at least partially established through violence. Now, to be fair, medieval merchant expansion was nowhere near as horrific as the British East India Company, but it wasn't an emancipatory force either. Most importantly, the name Sri Vijaya Puram has nothing to do with the history of the Andaman and Nicobar Islanders, who were victims of British colonialism in altogether different ways from us mainlanders. They suffered diseases to which they had no immunity. They were unable to defend their cultures and languages from extinction. All 10 of the great Andamanese languages have now essentially disappeared, and the Great Nicobar project will undoubtedly have the same effect on Shompen and Nicobarese, all while the people of the islands control less and less of their own lands and resources. Massive resorts, ports, and environmental damage can't simply be branded as decolonial by stoking nationalist sentiment using names from a distant history. I'm sure this is a controversial opinion, so if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Follow us everywhere on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Anabuddha and on Twitter at Ekanisati. We'll see you next week.